All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. We're talking about TNXP stock today. I hope you don't mind if Murphy joins the video. He might leave, actually. Let's see. As soon as I start talking, he was there for a while. All right, anyway, we're talking about TNXP stock. Real quick, though, I want to thank you all for the support. Once again, we just crossed 13,000 subscribers. And to me, it's just amazing. Like, I'm going to be really happy when I get to 50,000 or 100,000, Lord willing. But I'm willing to wait as long as that takes. You know, it's been a long time and I've kind of been sporadic with this channel. So I need to be more consistent. And that's the main thing that I'm trying to do. So I appreciate everybody who tunes into these videos. We're talking about TNXP stock today, Tonix Pharmaceuticals. Now, this one I've talked about so many times on the channel before. This one was a big buildup, okay? It was a big event. And in all fairness, the fibromyalgia market has not seen anything like this in a long time. So when you have first to market demand and a market of, let's say, $3 to $5 billion, maybe $7 billion, $10 billion long term, you have basically a monopoly in that space. So Tonix Pharmaceutical is well positioned as basically a monopoly, a legal one, because the FDA is the one who has to approve the drug. Now, the thing is with the FDA, if they did not exist, there would probably be a lot more fibromyalgia drugs. Just saying. But, then of course that increases risk and, side effects and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, Tonix Pharmaceuticals was approved. So this was huge landmark news. And what did the stock price do? And this is the same problem that I see all the time in the market, is that the initial reaction is not what people expect. People think that they're just going to get rich quick and that the stock is going to head to the moon. It's not always like that. And, I discussed some of these risks before the news came out, and I said this is a possibility. Now, if you look over the last 6 months, Tonix is actually, and it's this $19, I think we're going to talk about, sorry, not TNXP, SPY. I want to type in SPY stock. So if you look at the last 6 months of the SPY, it's up 30% as well, pretty much, right? So, you can argue that TNXP is actually, outperforming the S&P 500 a little bit. If you look at the QQQ, it's probably going to be more. The last 6 months, we're up 41%, which is quite amazing. Now, 1 year chart, 23%. What's TNXP up 1 year? Only 4%, right? So you can look at it from a number of ways. On a short-term basis, we're doing better than the market. On a long-term basis, or the 1 year, 5 years, etc., it's not quite as rosy. Here's the thing. We're at right now, according to Google, $172 million market cap. Now, let's take a look. I always come into OTC markets, even for NASDAQ-listed stocks. A lot of people don't know you can actually come here and find NASDAQ-listed stocks. They also have nice charts and everything. $163 million market cap. It looks like that is accurate as of 10/17, so I'm going to take that and run with it. Now, what is the current value of this market again? I think we just talked about that. And in fact, we can look this up just to verify in real time. Value of fibromyalgia market 2025. So as I mentioned, 3.63 billion, 3 to 5 billion, a reasonable amount. 2025 to 3034, we have precedence research here saying that we could go to 5 billion plus up until 2034. They're probably being conservative. So now there may be other integrations and there may be other types of drugs that come to market for the fibromyalgia. But here's the problem that I see is that you're going to have the regulatory problems, the FDA, unless they abolish the FDA or something crazy. But at the same time, the share price has come down so much. And from a technical perspective, this thing, since the news came out, it peaked off at roughly $70 a share or the equivalent. News comes out in August? So it peaks off. When did the news come out again, guys? Was it August 15th, right? That was the day. When that news came out, it looks like we've just seen a nosedive. And that is, in fact, what happened. And so it looks like this is the peak, $70 a share, all the way back down. Now, if you go back further, you will see another story. This right here happened at the end of the year, this big move on the chart all the way up to the equivalent of 125. Now, that was the regular market session, but in the pre-market, it actually hit $194 a share. So just for perspective, this thing went on a 10x, and I was actually able to pick up right about here. That's where I bought my shares, most of them. right here. I accumulated this for several months. This is me accumulating, and then it shot up. So it was a tidy profit. It was, and I did very well. And I was, I didn't make 10x. That was about the total return, but it was still a good return. So for those of you guys who got in there, congratulations. But you can notice that since then, is it really the end of the world? I mean, we've come down. We've seen some gaps. The gaps have been filled, and here we are. So yes, right now you can see this long-term trend line seems to love, especially when you get down under $10 a share. It's just like it's too cheap. And for the value, keep in mind when it was trading at the equivalent of $13 per share, 13 cents. In fact, I did buy my original first position at 13 cents approximately before the split, or $13 a share. It goes to $19. When you're seeing something like this, it can just feel magical. It feels great for something like this to happen when it goes up 10x from under 20 cents, and you're like, it's just a huge rush of dopamine. So you have to be careful not to get greedy, right? But when you look back at the previous chart, down at these levels right here, we're basically trading at those same levels again before the news came out, right? So to me, it's very interesting. It's very, reminiscent of what could happen if this comes down under $20 a share. I'm going to say load up the truck on Tonix right now. And I'm going to, take it into the context of your own risk tolerance, your own investing goals, etc. But the thing is, I would say under $20 a share. This is before the news came out, right? Before Tonix Pharmaceuticals, when they came out with their FDA blockbuster approval in August, we're back down at those levels. This is all speculation right here. I want you to understand that. Like, all speculation, no official certainty, yet it's still 10x, and it went up to the equivalent of $194 a share in the pre-market, but in the actual market, about $125 was the peak, which is still a fantastic return. People who bought at these prices did in fact make 10x, and you did have an opportunity for several months to load up at those prices. So this is why I do what I do, once again, because I enjoy discussing opportunities that maybe are kind of under the radar. I feel as though right now, with the blockbuster approval that we've seen, and if you look at the actual news, I tried to type in TNXP stock, there's really not much. But what there is are technicals that suggest that the price is at a reasonable valuation, especially under $20 a share. And, given the fundamentals that we have with the fibromyalgia market, this could be a very solid play. So I love talking about these things. I love deep diving these topics because this is what the market is all about, guys. And we have to think about the mania going on with AI and the markets in general. This could easily go on a 5x, a 10x. Now, is it going to? All this is speculation, right? I always tell people, consult with a financial advisor if you feel like you need to, based upon your risk tolerance, investing goals, and objectives. There's nothing wrong with that. We are not a registered financial advisor, but we do fall under the publisher's exemption. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And, with that being said, to finish, TNXP stock could be ready for takeoff. That was in July. But after the approval, first fibromyalgia drug in 15 years, Tonmya for the first, here it is. And so when we see something like that, and then there's really not much, oil prices, I don't even know what this is. So some kind of weird website. Maybe I just got a virus on my computer. I hope not. But one more thing here, guys. This chart, look at this trend line. Over the last year, you can see where the trend line has been. So from the fundamentals and the total value after the approval, the total addressable market, and the fact that this is really the only big solution out there right now, Tonmya, for fibromyalgia, under $180 million market cap, you can ask how much more of that market do they have to extract. And keep in mind, this is a company also that, when you think about all the different drugs they have, it's not just the fibromyalgia drug. They have different drugs out there. There's so many of them. And I encourage you to do research on the company because, this is some big stuff. Not just the $5 billion potential of the fibromyalgia market, not just the fact that we're sitting under a $200 million market cap and basically have an FDA monopoly on this, essentially. I mean, if you think about it, you can look at the pipeline. You can look at all of these. Yeah, Tonmya, there it is. It's the front page news. But I'm trying to find some of the other drugs they have as well. Guys, look at all this pipeline they have. Central nervous system, TNX-102 SL, 1500, 1700. They have all kinds of blockbuster potential drugs here. So once again, Tonix Pharmaceuticals, TNXP stock. Check it out if you're interested. And we will see you all in the next one.